Got a wonderful little panfish nymph for you this week. This is called the Bead Head Carrot Nymph. I actually ran across a nymph called the Carrot Nymph a number of years ago, and at that time thought this would make an excellent panfish fly for the summertime. Just throw a nice little gold bead on it. So that's what I did. It's made out of simple, straightforward materials, an orange dubbed body, and some palmered hackles, and that's about it. It's a rugged little fly, easy to tie. In no time, you can have a bunch of these in different sizes and even different colors in a box that work just fantastic on your favorite panfish ponds. That's the Bead Head Carrot Nymph. We'll go ahead and get started. Before we can put our hook in the vise, we have to add the bead to the hook. This is a 5/32 gold bead. You'll want to add that to the hook. In this case, I had to debarb the hook in order to get the bead to slide around the bend. Sometimes you have to and sometimes you don't. Once the bead is on the hook, we can put the hook into the vise. The hook that I'm using here is a Mustad 3906B in size 10. The next step, we're going to add some lead wraps to the hook shank. For this, I'm using a .015 lead. Put 6 to 7 wraps of lead along the hook shank. After smoothing off the tags, push the lead together and then push all those wraps of lead into the cavity inside the gold bead. This has the effect of adding a little bit more weight, but it also traps that bead right up against the eye of the hook while we are tying the fly. For thread, I'm using a Danville 6.0 in a fluorescent orange. Attach your thread right behind those lead wraps, and then put wraps in right behind the lead to build up a little bit of a thread dam. The thread dam does two things. It jams that lead right up into the bead, as well as it makes a transition from the diameter of the hook to the diameter of the lead. Once you have that thread dam in place, run your lead down the hook shank all the way down to the bend of the hook. The rib is made out of a UTC Ultra wire. This is a black wire in a size medium. You'll attach that to the hook shank. I like to have the wire right on the underside of the hook shank. Run your thread down the hook shank and down the bend to just past the barb of the hook. Make certain that wire is secured along the hook shank very well, and then we can start to dub the body. For the body, we're using an ice dub. This is a UV hot orange. We're going to make a 3 to 4 inch dubbing noodle. You can make this a level body if you want. I prefer to have a taper to it so that it is narrow down at the butt end of the fly and gets thicker as you get up towards that bead. You can trim away some of the longer ice dub fibers that are sticking out if you want. I wouldn't concern myself with it really, because panfish, their little teeth is going to be picking that out anyway and make it rather shaggy. You want to end up with the body being about the same width as the gold bead behind the gold bead. That space is going to be for our thorax and for our palmered hackle for the legs on our fly. Grab a hold of the wire and start palmering that around in 4 to 5 wraps, evenly spaced up the body. The wire will reinforce that dubbed body and help it to last a little bit longer, as well as give it a look of segmentation. When you get to the end of the dubbed body, secure the wire in with 2 or 3 wraps. In order to remove the remaining wire, spool your bobbin right up to the fly nice and tight to support the fly and twist the wire off. This will give you a nice clean break of the wire right at the thread. You want to add a few wraps of thread to tidy up the space between the end of the dubbed body and the bead. This will level that space off for us to add our thorax and our collar. For the thorax, I'm going to be using some Peacock Herl. You want to take 3 or 4 strands of Peacock Herl. Get the tips fairly even, but they don't have to be exactly even because we're just going to cut across them to even those up. Secure those to the hook shank, starting right next to the dubbed body, on up to the bead. Level those off with some thread wraps, and leave your thread right behind the bead. Take a hold of the Peacock Herl and start palmering that towards the bead, but you want to make certain you leave just a little bit of space right behind that bead for our collar. Then continue to wrap, but this time go back down towards the body, and then a couple of wraps back up to where your thread is, and then we'll secure the remaining Peacock Herl and trim away the excess. By wrapping back down and back over, what that does is it increases the diameter of our thorax so that it is much wider, and it helps the overall profile of the bug look like it's still getting larger as you're going up towards the bead. You'll want to tidy up that area right behind the bead to get ready for putting in our collar. For a collar, I'll be using some African Guinea, but you could certainly use like a speckled hen hackle would work very well. You're going to want to choose a feather where the longest barbs, that's the ones that are going to be the last ones wrapped on, are going to be about a hook shank in length. Prep the feather by removing all of the fluff, and then you'll grab the tip of the feather in your hackle pliers so that you can stroke those fibers back, exposing just the tip of the feather that we can use to tie to the fly. Tie the tip in and then leave your thread up against the thorax. By doing this, as we palmer that hackle forward, it will have to push on the thread, and the weight of the bobbin and the thread will thus make each wrap of the collar kind of push back against the previous one. Take a hold of that hackle with your hackle pliers, stroking the fibers back. You'll want to start palmering that around. You're only going to get 2 or 3 wraps of this hackle, and that's fine because we're not really looking for a thick, bushy collar. We're looking for something that's just going to represent some legs. Take your time with it. Make certain that all of those fibers are swept back and none are getting trapped facing forward. Once you have that in place, then secure the end of that feather with a couple of wraps of thread. Once secure, sweep all of it back, add in a few thread wraps to secure the end of the feather, as well as force all those fibers in a backward direction. And it also adds just a little bit of a hot band to the fly right behind the bead. Now add in a 4 or 5 turn whip finish. And we can cut away our thread. Take the hackle stem, fold it forward. If you can't just pop it off, then go ahead and just cut it off. Add some head cement all along those thread wraps to reinforce that against any sharp little panfish teeth. You can preen some of those hackle fibers if you want. I really don't get too caught up in making certain that they're all evenly distributed and they all look just perfect. This is just a little panfish fly, and guaranteed when this is under the water, those legs will come to life and the fish will just love them. That's the Bead Head Carrot Nymph. Obviously the carrot portion comes from the orange dubbing that we used and the orange thread. You could certainly use some fluorescent chartreuse or some red or some other color, even yellow or something like that, just to mix this up and have some in different colors. The hackle, you could use a speckled hen hackle, even just you don't even have to have something that's modeled. You could use just a regular hen hackle or something like that. I do think that the contrasting colors do aid in the attractiveness of this fly. But again, use what you have. Don't feel you have to go out and buy a whole new guinea neck or a whole new guinea skin just to turn around and be able to tie this fly. Be a little creative. It's a great little panfish nymph. It's wonderful in the summertime. When the fish are a little bit deeper, you can tie this onto a 9-10 foot leader, easily get it down deeper in the water column where the larger fish are going to be. You can just have a whole lot of fun with it. That's the Bead Head Carrot Nymph. Thanks for joining me at the Vise today. I hope you learned at least a new pattern, if not a new technique, maybe a tip or trick here and there. If you have any questions about this fly or any of the techniques used in constructing this pattern, please leave them in the comments section down below. If you go to the trouble to ask a question, I'll go to the trouble to answer it. If you'd like to help Dressed Irons, please share this video with your friends and anybody you think that might enjoy this pattern. Until next time, remember, it's fly tying. If you're not having fun, then you're doing it wrong.